Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Pod Fruit One Piece Through New Eyes. Today, on our first proper episode, we are discussing Volume 1 of One Piece. Volume 1 covers chapters 1 through 8 and is known as Romance Dawn. I am the host, Michael, and with me we have our One Piece rookies, V and Dylan.
Hi.
Hello.
Let's begin. I have a short summary here of Volume 1. Most of it is copy and pasted from a wiki with a few edits from yours truly. So, what we have here, a young boy named Monkey D. Luffy swears to become the Pirate King, accidentally eats the Gomu Gomu no Mi, that's the gum gum fruit, and is given a straw hat by his idol Shanks. 10 years later, Luffy sets out on the high seas where he meets cabin boy Kobe and defeats Kobe's abusive captain Alvida. The two arrive at an island where Roronoa Zoro is imprisoned. Intent on having him in his crew, Luffy meets Zoro and a girl who reveals why he was captured. Luffy goes on to retrieve Zoro's swords, but enrages the captain of the Marine base, Morgan, Axe Hand Morgan, and the Marines go to kill Zoro and Kobe. We then get a flashback where Zoro remembers the promise he made to his deceased friend, Kuina. They defeat Morgan and Morgan's son Helmeppo, as well as the Marines at the base. Zoro tells Luffy he will join the crew. Luffy and Zoro leave peacefully. Kobe joins the Marines. He and the Marines thank the two for stopping Morgan. Finally, Luffy is captured by a bird, and Zoro meets some of the buggy pirates. On an island, Luffy meets a girl named Nami, who is running away from some pirates. And that is a summary of Volume 1 of One Piece, the central theme of tonight's episode. So, with that being said, let's dive in. What did you guys think? This is your first One Piece volume, top to bottom. We did it. We got through one. And yeah, where do we land? We don't have a ton to go off of, so I totally understand that. I think our listeners will too. But yeah, just first impressions.
Dylan, do you want to start?
Sure, why not? And overall, like, art-wise, one thing that stuck with me is that it seems to try and be, like, very whimsical and childlike with its art style and direction. But then it does kind of, like, hit some pretty grave matters, like, see people getting shot in the face, people losing arms, and it's kind of a cool side-by-side. That's one of the big things I've taken away from it. And also, with the amount of time it's taken us to do this episode, I've reread it like 4 times. And I'm picking out new stuff every time I read through it, which has been kind of fun.
Someone does get shot in the face, don't they?
Yeah. And with the art style, it's kind of like, oh, it's trying to take itself seriously. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good call out. The kind of childlike whimsy combined with the real shit, guns. Any other takeaways? Just again, general. We'll get into some more specific
That's pretty
stuff.
broad strokes for me. It's just, the art style, kind of cool how they're putting in these grim details on top of this childlike style, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and V again, broad. We're talking broad here. We'll narrow down our
Right.
focus.
So I will say, I don't know if it's a product of me not having watched not having watched anime or having read a manga in a while. I found it to be extremely dynamic in the sense that there's very little time where there's not a lot going on. Like, it's always moving from one thing to another, and it really helps in keeping your attention and keeping your focus on the story and getting really engaged with the characters, in becoming quickly interested in what will happen to these characters and what destiny has in store for them, so to speak. And yeah, I thought that was really cool. Like, it really, like I said, captured my attention and had me wanting more and had me looking forward to reading one chapter after another.
The pace of the manga is one of my favorite things compared to the anime. You know, the 8 chapters that we read, I don't know if it's exactly 8 episodes. It may be more, maybe right around that, but that's, 20 minutes per episode. I can finish a chapter uh, pretty quickly at my own pace. I can stop, put it down, pick it up. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I read like the whole volume in like 45 minutes.
Right. Right. Okay, right on. Yeah, I love this romance dawn arc. I think it brings a lot of really cool ideas to the table, and you're just like, what are you getting at here? What what are we trying to say here? And you get to see cool characters. You're introduced to a ton of new concepts. Speaking of, why don't we talk about some of the main characters? So, obviously, the best place to start is at the very beginning with Luffy. Um, First impressions on our main character, our protagonist Luffy. You can say, things like who you think he is, how do you relate to him, how do you see him as a part of his world, small, big, so on and so forth. Anything stuck out to you about Luffy? Monkey D. Luffy. V, you go first.
I have a lot of thoughts actually on our main character. I find him to be, in terms of the protagonists, one of the characters I relate to the least. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I have entirely too much anxiety to relate to Luffy. I think just his outlook on life and his complete disregard for his own safety is absolutely jarring, and I love it. I think it's super interesting for me as someone who overthinks literally everything I do to become attached to this character who is completely off the hinges when it comes to that. But I really do enjoy him. I think he takes me out of my comfort zone in a way that I need it. Not only as a reader, but also as a person. I feel like whether I like it or not, I have a lot to learn from him. So that would be the main thing about Luffy.
Yeah, I would agree. I was thinking the same thing when I was putting together some different stuff to talk about here. When I was rereading, I was like, wow, that's kind of who I aspire to be. If I was able to set aside all of this anxiety and stuff that keeps me held back in many ways, that sounds lovely and also terrifying. Dylan, thoughts on Monkey D. Luffy?
So far from what I'm seeing from him, a terrible leader, just because of the points you've made. Like, awful leader, but heart of gold. Quite adept at failing his tasks successfully. But like I kind of feel a little semblance to him, just because it's like the whirlpool scene specifically, when it's just like, oh man, I'm stuck in a whirlpool. Oh, it doesn't matter that I can't swim. I drown anyways. So it's like, I can't control this situation, so what the hell is stressing going to do about it? Like, nothing. So let's just roll with the punches. And I kind of admire that and respect that. And, in some ways I feel like I try to do that, but I like that about him.
Right, I feel like you do that pretty well.
Something I could do about it, just survive.
Yeah, at least as far as I can tell, you're a chronic, whatever the opposite of a warrior is. Yeah, any other characters that you guys want to call out? Maybe ones that you relate to, ones that left just an impression on you? Either one of you.
I have kind of broad thoughts on most characters as they came into play. I just as the female face of this, or the female voice, should I say, of this podcast, I have to say that Zoro is exactly the type of character that I would develop a crush on if I were in my teenage years. Like, as a teen, and to this day, to be honest, like, the brooding type, like, that sticks to his principles, but is also, like, mysterious, and, like, it's like it's one of my favorite tropes, like the badass that's actually a sweetheart. And so basically, the moment I saw him, I knew that I would be like,
when he says, "Tell her I ate every bit
I
of
know, I know, and I'm like that in my heart. He's so considerate and
He's so
kind and
sweet.
mindful, and I was like, yeah. So that Zorro is probably my my other highlight in terms of characters, but I do, I do enjoy all of them thus far.
Dylan?
This will probably put people like to grab their torches and pitchforks. I'm going to call him Zolo because that's how he's referred to in the manga. So I'm going to refer to him as Zolo the whole time.
I did that at first too.
And it might change, but for right now, it's like it's like reading Dragon Ball. It's current, not Krillin. But like I kind of saw him and like he did the three sword thing, and I like rolled my eyes like, oh, here we go. Because I've read a lot of the R.A. Salvatore. It's like, oh, great, another moody yet sensitive master swordsman Dritz over here. Here we go. But no, like it's early on, so I'll withhold judgment for now. But I saw the three sword style. It's like in your mouth. All right, come on. I get it's a manga, but it's a little ridiculous.
Is it though? If you think that's ridiculous,
Yeah, I know. I'm in for a treat, right? But don't hate him.
Right.
But saw that and was kind of like, okay, I guess we got to go for rule cool on this one.
All right. So on the other side of that, we've only had a couple antagonists here. We had Alvida and Axehand Morgan and Axehand Morgan's son to a bit of a lesser extent. What do we think of some of the bad guys here? They were handled pretty quickly, I would say. Dylan, did you have a particularly favorite?
Not necessarily a favorite. Like for me, it was some of the bad. I was a little disappointed. Like you said, they were handled super fast. So it's kind of like, oh, okay. Like Alvida, it's kind of like, all right, whatever. Kind of to me, just a dumb filler bad guy. But Axel Morgan, I feel like could have been a lot more depth to it. I would have been interested in like seeing more of that story. But I understand right now it's kind of like the mad dash pace. It's like, all right, here's the crew. Like we got to assemble the crew, get the crew together, and then we'll start taking a little
Let's
more
put an
time.
obstacle in their way. Maybe it's a guy with a axe hand.
Yeah, but it's like after that, but though it's like, okay, now we're gonna deal with some actually like, big bad guys where they got to take some time to actually formulate some kind of plan.
There's going to be some long, not just fights, but just like dealings with bad guys and stuff.
So I'll say Axe Hand, I was kind of a little disappointed because it's like that's a cool design and is kind of like his character in general. It's like I could see this being a really cool enemy to flesh out, but it really wasn't because they just like, all right, yep, he punched him real good and then Zolo killed him. Cool.
Yeah. They took care of him, took care of business. Interesting that a guy like that rose to such a high post, isn't it?
I mean, I gotta think brute strength. Brute strength gets you so far.
Yeah. V? Thoughts on our antagonist?
So it's funny that you say that you mentioned Morgan's son to a lesser extent, but I personally think that he's more despicable. Helmeppo is more despicable
than... Actually, that makes perfect sense.
Than Captain Morgan, in my opinion. I think he is a brat. I think he is entitled.
Ugly.
He's so ugly. Like everything, like the hair, the face. Like I already just the way he was drawn, I already knew that he was going to be annoying and obnoxious. And like the more I read, the more I realized I was proven right. Like hate him, hate them. And like of course he would be a daddy's boy, right?
I don't even care about him.
Like he's just so yeah. Really the type of character that really like gets to me because I feel like I've actually known people like that. And they're not great people to be around. So I would say for me, Helmeppo was the really a thorn in my side, if I'm being honest.
It was really satisfying watching him get knocked on his ass, not once, but twice.
Oh, very much so.
Well, 3 times. His dad did give him the backhand. He's like, you ain't worth it.
Oh, yeah. Hit you with the back of my axe hand.
Yeah, that was kind of satisfying. I like that part.
So we're rooting for Morgan a little bit here, just a little bit, just in his struggle with his son.
I mean, he's a badass. Like, just right off the bat, you're a guy with like a steel jaw and an axe for a hand. It's pretty great. And then you have to deal with this little piece of shit on the side as your son. Poor guy.
Feel for him. I want to see his story from his
Well, he did want to kill a kid, so it's not.
Yeah, he's also not a saint. He wanted to kill that little girl.
Yeah, it's funny that Luffy happened to show up on the day of his statue unveiling and immediately knocked it down. Yeah, any last thoughts, either one of you, on antagonists, characters? Kobe, what do you think of Kobe? V, I feel like you may relate to Kobe a little bit more, besides the wanting to be a cop.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, you're right. He's actually, that was in my notes when first reading chapter 2 was, why do I relate so hard to Kobe? Literally, it's written in my notes. Because, my first impressions of that character is he's a softie, he is a people pleaser, he doesn't like to stir the pot, he likes to kind of stay quiet, but also he does have like thoughts and opinions on things that are going on around him. And I guess what I was also thinking that having a character like Kobe around can make for potential, like, very interesting potential interactions between him and the other characters, most notably for me with Luffy. I think I have a feeling like Luffy is going to rub off on Kobe, because I don't think that Luffy is especially prone to change because of his like lack of self-awareness, but I feel like Luffy is going to encourage Kobe to become more daring, more I don't want to say extroverted, but make him more willing to step out of his comfort. Fight for himself. Yeah, exactly. He's going to stand up for himself. That's what I feel anyway. And I feel like even just within that first chapter, you see that emerging. You see that trend of Kobe going into something maybe reluctantly and then being like, wait, I actually need to do this. Like, I need to step up. So yeah. Very interesting character. Very much looking forward to seeing what his presence brings to the group.
Right. Now, they only had her in there for just a single chapter. What do you... Don't answer this question. V, what do you know about the character who was introduced in chapter 8, Nami? Anything?
Not really. I feel like of the exposure that I have had to One Piece prior to this project, I feel like I've seen her around. Like, I know that she becomes an important character, but I don't know to what extent. Like, I don't know what her role is in the grand scheme of things. I just know that she is present to some extent.
She does become one of my favorite characters in the show, and I think her introduction was so perfect. The way she like tricks those thirsty boys and takes their ship, and then she leaves,
sinks them with the storm. Yeah,
yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I was gonna wait until we kind of dove into the chapters.
Well, since we were talking about characters, that's why I brought it up. We can dive back into it if you want to.
But to touch back on the Kobe part, I kind of like V, like you were saying, touch on what you were saying. He kind of grounds the group a bit. Where it's like, okay, you have fantastical ideas. Now reality's calling. Like, hey, no, that's what we want to do. There's two of you. Come on, calm down. You got to figure it out. And I just love the point when he gets a spine. He finally gets a spine, and it's just like. Mm-hmm. Normally it's like, oh, Lady Elvira, like, you're the fairest. You're the fairest. It's like, Lady Elvira is the ugliest, fattest bitch in the whole sea. It's just like, all right, okay, I feel you, Kobe.
Do you want to save your thoughts on Nami till we get into the chapters, or you want to?
I guess I can talk to her because we are talking about characters, so I might as well just kind of express my thoughts on her real quick. I feel and again, I'm going into this having no idea what kind of character she becomes, but my very first impressions are, I think she is going to make a fantastic addition to the crew. I think she is very savvy. I feel like she's competent, she's deceptive, and that's everything you need in a pirate. I feel like maybe unbeknownst to everyone involved, she is going to become a key asset in the way that that team or that crew works. So, I her being introduced at the very end, or at the end of the volume in chapter
Mm-hmm.
8, I feel like was very much like a teaser, and that it was very intentional in the way that they
Cut to black.
that they stopped that volume there because they knew that people would want to know more about what was going on with her. So, yeah.
Even on the reread, I can't wait for the rest of her introduction here. I mean, she literally Luffy literally drops down from the sky because he was kidnapped by a bird. Uh, Luffy's like, "Hey, it's my boss," and they're like, "Hey, let's get him." He whoops their asses, and and she's like, "Hey, I rob pirates," and Luffy's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
I don't think it could have been set up more perfectly. I think that's one of my favorite character introductions in the whole series. Maybe I don't know. It's great the way she finesses those those three nerds.
Yeah.
Um, Dylan, any thoughts on Nami?
I mean, like I said, like I said, I think that Shonen Jump I mentioned in the first episode. I think that was covering volume 2. So I think I know a bit of the arc that's coming up ahead. I think I've actually read through a bit of it. So not getting any spoilers. No, I'm kind of interested to see where it goes. I have an idea of where it's going, but seeing how she can see the conditions of the sea and use them to her advantage is pretty cool.
Right. All right. Well, we'll move on from the characters and the antagonists. We'll start talking about like setting, world building. We've already kind of touched on some themes, some of the art style, and how the art style complements the action, so on and so forth. Um, Dylan, so they're building this world around you. You have a little outpost. You have a couple, just tiny little outposts. You have Alvida's hideout. You have the little town where they found Zoro. The town where Luffy is from, and they all seem very small in their own ways. Here, you got devil fruits. They give people powers. Like, what are your thoughts on just the world as a whole? Do you think it feels small? Do you think it feels big, empty, full?
Well, as of right now, it seems like to be the perfect setting for a grand pirate tale. It's like a vast world with just an archipelago, like a bunch of little islands. It's like, okay, if you're gonna have a pirate story, might as well be set in a place that's just islands, no big continents. Which who knows in the future if there's big land masses or not, but right now it's okay. A bunch of naval ports and stuff like that. That makes sense for the story. With the gum fruit in there, like I haven't really delved much, know much about those, but now like at this point, from what we've read, we know there's more than just the one. So I'm really interested to see. It's like, okay, how many are there? What do other ones do? So it's building you up to be interested in the world, and so far it's working for me.
Oh, also, I was curious. How do you view the kind of the way pirates are done in this world? Like, clearly, we've seen some are not your traditional pirates. They're all about hanging out and just having a good time. Others are very much focused on villainy, treasure, so on and so forth. There's already in the first 8 chapters a decent variety, I would say, of that. How do you feel about all that?
Well, it's interesting because I mean, like Luffy, you look at it like Luffy and his potential crew are like this classic romanticized pirates, what everyone dreams of, like the whole Captain Jack Sparrow, like oh brigands with hearts of gold. But then you also have the mix of it's like oh the Navy who should be the good guys. Well, there's some corrupt, vile people in that Navy as well. Well, the Navy is sometimes the bad guys. So I think that's an interesting look at it because normally I feel like a lot of stories like this is like you have your good guys, you have your bad guys, no in between. But this is like no, there's a little bit of mixture. There's some good guys that are bad guys, and there are bad guys that are good guys.
Right. All right. Any other words on that before I move over to V?
Nah, that's pretty much all I got on that.
V, setting, world building, same stuff I was asking Dylan. Anything you want to add there?
So I'm going to make a really weird comparison.
Please.
My initial feeling on it is the same feeling I got when I first played Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Because The Wind Waker happens to take place in a universe where you have to travel a lot from one island to another. And that is a key part of the gameplay, and it brings about this extra sense of adventure that I really enjoyed and found super attractive in this Zelda game as compared to others. And I'm getting the same feeling out of this, as I feel like what they've introduced so far is small, but that there's so much potential for something big and magnificent, and I feel like the possibilities are kind of endless. And at this point, I'm just so looking forward to their adventure and finding out where they find themselves and what islands they're gonna find and what other crews they're going to meet, and just the potential is very appealing to me. And like I said, it taps into this nostalgia I have of myself being a little Link on his boat, trying to explore the sea in Wind Waker. Yeah, so that's...
And a whirlpool comes up around
Yeah,
you. Like,
exactly.
I guess I drown.
Oh, shit. Nothing I can do about it. That's a great analogy, by the way. That's a really good
Yeah, I
analogy.
thought
That's
that
kind of
was
how I
really,
was feeling about it too. But that was a great way to word it.
Astute.
And it's kind of the sense of childlike wonder, where I'm like, this is amazing, and this could become
What's
so...
under this stone? Oh my
Right.
God, it's a roly-poly.
Right, there's always something there to discover,
I'm gonna eat
and yummy. And yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to it. Yeah, it's yeah, just a lot of potential.
Yeah, it just snowballs from there. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up from here, so I can't wait to explore that with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and kind of kick off the themes a little bit, because I feel like pulling the themes of something so much bigger out of such a small chunk may be a little bit difficult, but I think some of these themes were hit on. I think the big one here, agree or disagree, is just freedom. Being able to do what you want without being restricted either by yourself or by society or by anyone who wants to. And another one, which I think is kind of lost in this one, because no one has time to develop true friendships, not deep, meaningful friendships. But friendship is a huge theme in One Piece, and I think you see the just light of it go off here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, those relationships aren't there. How do you feel about those two themes, V? Anything you want to add? Anything else you saw?
Well, definitely freedom, like you said, the whole do what you want because a pirate is free, you are a pirate. I feel fits exactly in the vision of piracy that we were kind of talking about earlier, and fits in the theme, and it's such a good conduit for storytelling, is what I feel, that search for freedom, and in the search you find freedom. What you're experiencing is also what you are looking for, I think, is something that is going to come up in this massive work of fiction and art, let's be honest. And friendship, I feel like you said, this is only the first volume, and it's hard really to determine to what extent these friendships are going to grow, but I definitely did see that light emerging, and that, again, the potential for these relationships to grow, develop, and bloom, really. So more things to come, all good things. Well, no, maybe not all good things, but a lot of good things to come.
Oh, another one, law and order. I guess that kind of goes with the freedom thing, but I mean, the Marines are there. They're cops, they're justice, and is justice good? Well, it depends on the person, and they really explore that a lot.
Right.
Kobe wants to be a cop.
I think that kind of speaks to um, a reality that we have to face, is that sometimes law and order does not necessarily mean that things are good and that their
Right.
intent is pure. And sometimes that chaos is actually is what going to be um, revealed as being the positive influence in the world, and not necessarily the rigid principles of, like we mentioned, law and order. That's not to say that there can't be that intersection, but I feel like um, so far the way that law and order has been presented in this manga is that of
Tyranny.
tyranny, corruption, and
Yeah, we haven't seen it
yeah,
in a good light yet. That's what I was
yeah,
gonna add. It's been
exactly. And I'm
corrupted.
not. It might not. It might change. I don't know, but I have a feeling that we are going to. Um, we're definitely going to see more good come out of this little crew of troublemakers. Really, people who decided to say no to law and order, who decided to be like, I'm going to do my own thing. And I
Yeah, I
feel
don't
like,
feel like following the rules.
right, exactly. And I feel like in having that attitude, they're going to do good things. Yeah.
Okay, right on. Dylan, same question.
Pretty much, we haven't really been able to see like a different side of Law and Order besides the tyranny. Because I mean, you have the example of where it's point of like you follow orders, you don't question them. Because the guy who's like, I'm not going to kill a kid, mutiny, gets murdered by his captain. Another one, it's like, we can't take them. It's like, I won't take cowards, kill yourselves. And they get ready,
Yeah.
and they get ready to do it. So far, what we're seeing, Law and Order is bad, as what has been presented to us so far. And the only good, like freedom seems like the best thing. It's like if you're going to be held to these laws, you're just going to live in fear, like the villagers of the naval base.
Right. Right. Um. Okay. Well, we're starting to get more into more concrete stuff here. Let's talk about the art style a little bit. I think we can probably address this better as we go through the chapters and stuff because I definitely highlighted certain panels that stood out to me. Well, we kind of touched on this already. The contrast between the whimsical and the serious. Um, but I mean, I guess we don't have to spend a ton of time on this. Did you like the art style? Did anything else stand out to you, Dylan?
Like so far with my actual like manga background, the stuff I've really gotten into was Attack on Titan. So I would say so far it wasn't really gripping me as much because Attack on Titan is like grimdark essentially. But like I said, it's cool to see. It's like all right, this is super whimsical. It's fun, and then it's like oh shit, really dark matters. And that contrast is that's like what's actually keeping me interested. It's like oh, let me see how they handle these harsh realities. Like I mean, Kobe got shot, and it's like whoa, okay, whoa. I thought he was dead. I was like oh my god, he died, and he's like I got shot. Ah! And it's like okay, and like Shanks getting his arm bit off, and it's like oh man, okay. I'm interested. You got me paying attention.
You brought up a great point, Dylan. I'm going to return to it. V,
Um.
the art style.
Yeah. So again, I find myself in a position where I'm exposed to something that's relatively new to me because, as I touched on in our introductory episode, most of the manga that I had consumed before then was, and now I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, shujo instead of shonen. So, as opposed to something that is shonen being catered to like young men, I read a lot of shujo, which is catered to young women. So, like I said, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, whatever. And the art style is drastically different between both styles of manga. In shonen, we find a lot more like dynamic lines, big action shots, wider shots, also like not necessarily panoramic, but like you get these like landscape shots once in a while. Whereas shujo is a lot softer, a lot more calm, more close ups, more like finer details and soft lines and curves. And at first I was like, do I like this? Like, I wasn't sure. Because I guess also, like, the only shonen manga I had been exposed to before that was Dragon Ball Z, and that's like the epitome of like shonen and sharp lines and really like I don't know how to describe it really, but a lot harsher than shoujo.
Yeah.
And I found kind of that same theme or that same impressions in going through One Piece. Um, but I think I like it. I think it fits the story so far. I think the art style is also telling the story, not just what is depicted and not just the dialogue, but just the way that it is drawn. Also, it helps in expressing what it is trying to express. So I think it's the kind of thing where right now it's a little bit jarring to me, but I can see myself getting used to it and enjoying it more and more.
All right. One thing I wanted to go back to on the character side, we didn't really touch on Shanks, Red Hair Shanks, and the Red Hair Pirate crew. Did you guys have any thoughts on them? V?
Um, I had yes, I did. I got a little choked up. Chapter one got me a little choked up. My main thought, without going into too much detail, because if we do start going through chapter by chapter, I do want to speak to that a bit more. But I so hope that they come back. Like, I do not want this to be the end of seeing that crew and seeing that character. Like, I'm very much looking forward to seeing, like, the recall, right, of that group of people, because I refuse to believe that that's it. Um, I think they were the inspiration behind Luffy's ambition, and I think that it would be absolutely a shame if that didn't somehow come back.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we can touch on that more when we discuss chapter one specific. But yeah, Dylan, Red Hair Pirates,
Um,
Red Hair Shanks.
it's kind of like I kind of like them a lot because at first it's like, oh, it's just goofball pirates, ha 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 ha. We drink, ha ha ha. We sing, ha 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 ha. And then they leave, and then they have the interaction with the mountain bandits, and it's just like, oh, ha, they made you look like a punk ass. It's like, yeah, I'm a little bitch. It's hilarious. And then they come back, and they're like, the guy points a gun at his head. He's like, that's not a good idea. And like the goofiest guy of all blows his fucking brains out, and it's just like, oh shit. And then the first mate just puts a cigarette out in the guy's eye and just beats the shit out of him with the blunt end of his musket. And it's just like, oh, okay, these guys are putting on this air to put you off guard, and then when push comes to shove, they handle your shit easily. I'm like, because the big bad of that group was just like immediately after that was smoke bomb, run away.
Yes.
And then with Shanks especially, he's like, oh, he laughs, ha ha ha. And then the sea monster bites off his arm and he just glares it down. He's like, leave. And the monster's like, oh shit, I'm out of here. It's like,
I didn't realize you were real.
It's like, oh damn, I just ate his arm and he ain't about it. I'm out of here. So yeah, it's interesting. And like B said, I would like to see them come back. And actually, on that point too, I want to see Kobe come back. Like, I don't know if it's like way ahead in the future, like where he's actual, like maybe a Marine lieutenant and he interacts with Luffy again. That'd be really cool to see, and that's something I kind of look forward to. Kind of see how Kobe might mature and develop further on, and see how much Luffy actually did rub off on him.
Right. Well, you both left off on what my next topic was going to be, actually. The narrative hooks. The, not necessarily mysteries, but just the unfinished business from this first chapter. Maybe short term, maybe long term. What are you most excited seeing develop? It could be multiple things. Dylan, you said you wanted to see what the heck happens to this little Kobe kid. He has pink hair, by the way. I keep almost saying this little pink-haired Kobe kid. It doesn't come through in the manga because it's black and white, but he has pink hair. And Dylan, what hooks kind of got you? Again, it can be stuff that you expect to be resolved next chapter. It could be stuff that you don't even know is going to ever be resolved.
Well, I think the big one is seeing Kobe. Because, like, Kobe, like, he put out his dreams, like, oh, I want to be in the Navy. I want to deal with bad guys. And then immediately after that, he gets faced with, like, the corruption behind it. And he's like, oh, what the? No, this is my dream, and that's ew. What the hell is
Mm,
this? And like, I
yeah.
feel like that really puts like, I'm not sure if it was ever said, but it like puts a resoluteness as like, my goal from joining the Marines is to root out all the corruption and make sure we're a pure force of good once again. And I'm interested to see if that develops along those lines. I'm not sure if that's just me grasping at straws, but that's something I feel like he kind of his character was shocked to the core for it, and I feel like that gave him the resolve to try and fix it himself.
Right. Any other hooks?
Besides that, I mean, I guess seeing Zola with the whole Karina backstory, which again, kind of like, oh, she's a great
Yeah.
swordsman. She beat the hell out of you. She fell down the stairs and died. I was like,
We'll get to
what?
that. Yeah, that's one of my
What?
things I
Like,
circled like
okay,
3 times.
but yeah,
I
but
have thoughts on that too.
yeah, I was like, that was jarring to me. I was like, that's she.
Yeah.
Like, do you not know how to fall? Like, just hit the shoulder and roll. Well, anyways,
All right, all right. V, yeah, hooks. The
Um,
hooks.
yeah, I feel like I kind of touched on it a bit earlier. Just in general, just very excited to see how this world is going to develop. Looking forward to seeing more of Shanks's crew, hopefully. Um, also, yeah, I feel like Kobe's development is going to be interesting, and I want to say really the whole crew. I'm just so looking forward to seeing how their relationships develop, while also keeping in mind that I have a feeling like Luffy. I don't want to say that he's not gonna go through any sort of character development, but I feel like he is the driving force of change around him, but he himself I don't see changing a lot. And I'm curious to see if I'm right or if I'm not. Um just because earlier I kind of talked about his lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, you nailed that on the head.
He's so not self-aware that I don't see him being very affected by certain events that would maybe make someone else rethink what they're doing. But I feel like he, unbeknownst to himself, is so influential to the other people around him that I'm very curious to see how all of that pans out. Cause yeah, very very interesting character.
All right. So, with that, that's kind of the big broad strokes that I wanted to get into. What I'd like to do next is just kind of go in chapter to chapter and just make some call outs here. Um, how do you guys want to do this? You just want to take turns in each chapter and just be like, yo, what did you think about A, B, or C? And then we discuss it. Again, relatively quickly. We don't need to spend too much time on each chapter here, maybe just a couple minutes. Like, why don't I go first? Why don't I go first with just
Go for it.
so the opening of One Piece is so iconic. The first, what was it, 2 or 3 pages with Gold D. Roger. I think he was at the gallows. Is the gallows where you get your head chopped off? Yeah. They
it's
open.
gallows is usually hanging, but
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Execution.
yeah,
Yeah.
execution.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, listen, the One Piece is out there. Go and get it. And then, as you hear in every anime, I
Can I
can't say
get
every
much
'cause I'm not actually
higher?
caught up, but many episodes of the anime, right before, it's been a while, the intro song, it has that same story. It's like the great pirate era has begun. Some more diehard fans may roast the hell out of me for misquoting this, but I'm okay.
Please
I'm
roast
putting
us.
myself out there. Yeah, roast us if you can. Interact with us, please.
But watch out.
Um,
I'll
but
do it.
yeah, I just think that's so iconic. It's been pounded into my brain. You think I'd know it better, but he was the great pirate of his era. He got, and he's letting people know that there's something out there for him if they can be brave enough and strong enough to find it. Dylan, any call outs from chapter 1 that you remember?
That is a good point. That is a great opening scene. It kind of like lays the background for the world really well. And I know we're finished like the art discussion, but I like V was saying earlier, like it's more broad scenario. I've loved all like the broad shots of the ships because I've always liked like the mercantile era of sail has been really interesting. So seeing these ships has been something I've always really loved. But I mean, chapter one kind of a little slow for me. Didn't hate it, but it wasn't like oh great because it was also
It's also long.
Yeah,
I feel like it's the longest at
I
least
think it's the
so
longest
far.
one ever.
I will say the cool thing with rereading it as many times as I have, not noticing him just like with the whole mountain bandit interaction, not noticing until like the second or third read through that like while they're having this beef, like Luffy's just sitting there eating the gum fruit, watching it go down.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, what's going on? Because the first time
He
it's like
just
why?
ate it 'cause he was hungry.
Yeah, and like the
It's
first time I was
super
like, why is
subtle.
he a rubber man? And then I read it again, I was like, oh, I missed that my first read through.
Yeah,
so that
it's
was
super
cool.
subtle. It's just this like half frame of him like just holding the fruit with a bite taken out of
Yeah.
it, and it's so easy to miss. I noticed that too, Dylan. I
That was
was like,
great. I like that.
that's
That was...
all it took.
But yeah, until they actually like got to the point where like we're not to be trifled with, it was kind of like, all right, we're just filling background story, and then the whole action sequences went down. It's like, oh, okay, they're not messing around. That's pretty much what I got on that.
Call-outs from chapter one?
I think chapter one for me was getting to know Luffy, and my main takeaway is how absolutely fearless and unstoppable he is. It's baffling.
When he stabs himself in the eye to prove that he's tough.
It's both very concerning and very endearing. Like, I can tell that this is going to get him in trouble, and that, like, gives me secondhand anxiety. Like, I just want to protect him and be like, no, don't do the thing. Don't do it. But also, like I was saying a bit earlier, I could probably use to have someone like that in my life, someone that like encouraged me to step away from my comfort zone and just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. And I feel like while he does act brashly, he's also he's aware of the people around him and cares for them, but he doesn't have that same regard for himself, which I think is interesting. You know, I think that's something that we see very clearly with Shanks and his arm, is that he's very distressed at Shanks having lost his arm protecting him, basically. And I gotta say that just the shot of Shanks giving him his hat, I had a little, you know, I felt it. I felt it in my chest. I was like, that was...
Keep this safe for me.
That was beautiful. And that is such a great storytelling tool. And yeah,
And the way they kind of like bullied him up to that point, like,
yeah,
it's tough love. It really
right,
is.
exactly.
It's kind of how we interact, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that was my main takeaway of chapter one.
One other thing I wanted to point out is the 2-page spread where Luffy just knocks out they're called Sea Kings. I don't know if that was explained in chapter one. That big sea monster, and then you get this awesome frame of just him like saying, "I'm going to become king of the pirates," which is iconic. They have a card for that. But yes, chapter one is rereading it was really really amazing, actually. Just being able to see all this again, because you know I'm 1,000 chapters from this at this point. And it's just really, it's like going back home, kind of, for the first time in a long time. And it was definitely the longest chapter here. I suspect we can probably mow through these next couple. I'm going to let Dylan start the chapter 2 callouts, and then you'll start chapter 3,
Sounds
so
good.
on and so forth. And we'll just go in a circle as it relates to my screen.
Well, if we're going to chapter 2, I just love the part when it's just like, man, what a great day for sailing. Who would have thought this journey would have gone to shit so fast? Which is what I'm loving about Luffy's character. It's like, all right, he realizes there's nothing he can do about it. He doesn't fucking stress it. And then I'm pretty sure it's the same chapter. I might be wrong, but then like he comes out of the barrel. It's like, man, that was a great nap. And it's just like,
Yeah.
all right, Luffy, you're a real one. I like you. But yeah, and then kind of learning that there's these other powerful pirates. That's kind of cool. It's more the world building. It's like, okay, it's like it's talking about all these pirates, and you're starting to see like the vastness of these, like the pirate network or whatever you want to call it. But then, and then it kind of also leans into, it's like, oh, this is how powerful Luffy actually is with how easily he handles the fact that the whole crew was in complete and total fear of Alvida the whole time, and he just lays her out with one punch, and it's like, all right, give me a boat. And they're like, yeah, you got it, boss. That's all I got on chapter 2.
All right.
Yeah, so for me, it was very much, I feel like Alvida was solely a conduit for Kobe and Luffy to meet. And again, I might be wrong, but I feel like we're never gonna see her again, and you know what? That's okay. I think she's I don't want to say forgettable character, but
it's okay to be a plot device.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think she's a plot device, and that's okay because we need those sometimes, right? But a very little backstory given on this character, very little like explanation on what her intent is, what her goal is. So I was like, okay, but like just Kobe and Luffy meeting to me is going to be, I foresee it being so important in the grand scheme of things that it's like, okay, I'm fine with this just being a plot device thing. And on that note, I think something else that really struck me is how quickly Luffy would basically do anything for Kobe. Like, and again, I think it all comes down to him being so not self-aware and so not aware that every single thing he does potentially, like, gets him in grave danger. He doesn't care whatsoever, and he's only just met this guy, and he would basically die for him. And I think that's terrifying and wonderful at the same time. So those are the big things on chapter 2. And earlier I was talking about how, meeting Kobe, I related to him quite a bit. So that was
there's so many things. There's so many things. There are things 100 chapters from now and 1,000 chapters from now that I could bring up with so many of y'all's points right now, but I can't. And I love it and I hate it. I love it and I hate it. It's so amazing, and it's just kind of like, those cartoon eyes when they get real big and burst out of their skull.
As a reminder, this was your idea.
I know it's awe-inspiring, really. Anything else, V?
That's it for chapter 2 for me. But I guess I can start on chapter. No, you.
Let me.
Yes,
let me pop in here.
Of course.
I loved the conversation between Kobe. Luffy's just sitting there calling him as he sees him, no filter, no thoughts, just vibes. Kobe's like kind of doubting him, and Luffy's like, "I'm not afraid to die, Kobe." Like, he says almost exactly that.
Basically.
I love how he's not afraid to roast Kobe either. Like, his new best friend, and he's just like, "Kobe, that's not a ship, that's a coffin, bro." And then he one shots Alvida. And one last thing, Dylan might appreciate this. When Luffy pops out of the barrel, it reminds me of the third of the Star Wars sequel movies. Somehow Palpatine survived or something. Like, Luffy was like, somehow I survived when he pops out of the barrel.
That's pretty good.
Oh. Also, at the end of this chapter, we got I believe it was the first, what's known as SBS. I don't know if you guys took the time to look through that. It was literally just telling you about Jolly Rogers.
Oh, yeah.
Oda, the author, does these a lot more as the story goes forward. Some of them are just kind of fun little, like, he'll answer letters from readers. Sometimes he'll actually do some lore dropping, which is some of my favorite. All kinds of cool little art things he does. People do requests, and he'll draw them. Definitely recommend taking a moment with those if you want to. They're not super important, but they are.
Yeah, the origin of the Jolly Roger one was kind of cool.
Yeah. V, kick off chapter 3 for us.
Well, I kind of touched on my first impressions of Zoro because listen, I'm a fangirl, and all fangirls need someone to, swoon over, and I guess this is gonna be it for me. Um, I thought this was a fairly rich chapter. A lot happens. We kind of get the introduction to the whole Marines and the law and order that we were talking about, and that, that force that is supposed to be um, lawful that is actually corrupt. And through that, we discover this character Zoro, who has. Um, I was very impressed by his. How can I put this? He has an innocence to him that you wouldn't think he would have, considering. Well, later on we find out more about like his backstory, but just looking at him, the guy's like tied up on this cross, rugged, beaten up, buff as heck, so you presume that he's a fighter. And he has this moment where I thought was really striking when he says that, like, all he has to do is survive here for a month and then he'll be free. But I don't think most people would have believed that promise, but I think he lets himself believe in that promise out of hope and out of this, like, innocence that he still has. And I found that very surprising for a character like that, because
That's a great point.
I didn't
I
expect
always just
it.
thought he was a dum-dum. But
No,
that makes sense. He has a lot to live for.
I
it's like-
feel like he's hopeful, and I feel like it's kind of admirable to have a character that is in such a predicament that still holds on to hope and innocence at the same time, and chooses to believe that people still want to do the right thing and that they will hold up their promises.
Well, it's because it's kind of like he's got this sense of honor, and he kind of holds everyone
Right.
else to that sense of honor. When it's like, no, man, that's not how the world works.
Yeah. And he has, as I mentioned earlier, he has principles, and he has a respect for life around him, as shown by his interactions with the girl that brings him the rice balls. He eats them. They're full of dirt. They're sweet. They're not at all what you expect from a rice ball. And he's like, "Tell her I said it was delicious, and that I ate it all." Like that's something. Like, that's really sweet. That's very, very sweet. And this is the story of how I developed a crush on Zoro.
It happened like that.
It did.
I don't have a ton to add that you didn't say. I think there's a couple really funny moments between Luffy and Kobe. Like, Kobe's like, "You got to save that girl," and Luffy's like, "Why don't you do it?" Come on, man. One of us has like special powers here. I feel like I would prefer a savory rice ball over a sweet one as well. So maybe Helmeppo has a point there. Maybe you should have smashed it into the ground.
Wow.
I'm kidding,
Rude.
kidding. And then, of course, on sight, Luffy decks the guy. So I thought those were just really cool call outs. Yeah, really good chapter, Rich. But yeah, you nailed it. Dylan?
Kind of what I take from it is, like, to me, this is like Kobe's dilemma for his dream. It's where he's really starting to see that, oh no, like what I aspire to be is what these people fear. Yeah, they fear Zolo, but it seems like they're more scared of what should be the good guys.
Yeah.
Because you have Hemplo, it's like, oh, it's like little girl, and it's like he stomps on the rice balls. He's like, what? She worked really hard on those. Like, why would you do that? And then it's like, all right, throw the girl. And he's like, wait, what the hell? And then after that, like Hemplo, like it's always like, I just have to survive 30 days. That idiot said, if I survive 30 days, I'll get to go free. And then he's walking through the town. He's like, yeah, we're gonna execute him in 3 days. And Luffy's like, what the heck? You said you let him go. It's like, oh, that's you believe that? You're just as dumb as he is. And then Luffy just knocks him cold. And like, to me, that's Kobe's dilemma. It's like, oh, this is what I want to be, but this isn't what I thought it was. So I took from that, like, to me, that was like Kobe, like having like Kobe growth moment for me was chapter 3.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Um, and I guess I will kick things off for chapter 4 here. We get introduced to Morgan. I'm looking through my notes. I put Helmeppo is ugly, and I underlined ugly. I feel like
I
we
mean, you
touched
ain't
on a lot
wrong.
yeah, right. Kobe gets shot. That was a little shocking the first time you see it,
Yeah, I was
but
like,
luckily it
oh!
was just his hand. Morgan kills a guy. You see someone literally get murdered on screen again. 2 in 4 chapters. And yeah, just little call outs like that. I love when Luffy's at the top of the tower, how he is just dragging Helmeppo through the place. No regard for anything else. He's like, where's the sword?
I'll show you if you stop dragging me. We passed it like 5 doors back.
Why didn't you tell me
Yeah.
that? Yeah, Dylan, anything else on chapter 4 you wanted to call out?
I mean, chapter 4 is another great example of like Luffy failing his task successfully, where he does like the gum gum rocket
Yeah.
to get to the top thing. He's like, oh shit, overshot it, and then just like destroys the statue.
Yeah.
And that point is like, oh, sorry about your statue. Anyways, I'm gonna go find these swords. Kobe getting shot was like another example where I talked. It's like, oh, it's all like ha ha ha, it's funny, but like oh no, like there's some real consequences. People do suffer extremely in this. Like, and the point was like, go kill that kid, and he's like, I'm not gonna kill a kid. And he just murders the guy.
I'm not gonna kill the kid.
I'm not gonna kill the kid.
Gets,
I'm not getting rid of the duster.
yeah, and just gets murdered for not getting rid of the duster.
Always
like,
sunny joke.
I mean,
Oh, that's a ref I don't get. It's fine.
It's another chat. It's another like this is starting to build the action, and like so like this chapter was fun for me. I enjoyed this chapter.
Oh, one other thing. Sorry, V. Before we push things over to you,
Rude.
I did want to point out Luffy's kind of like bravado. Like he's made up his mind at this point. Like Zoro is joining his crew.
It's like you're gonna be in my
lets
crew.
him know. Yeah, and I appreciate that again. Lack of self awareness. Like I could never. V.
So I feel like Luffy's fearlessness shines through in that chapter quite a bit. Like he knows for a fact that there are potentially grave consequences for his actions, but he does what he sees as just and correct, and he stands up to bullying. And as someone who unfortunately suffered from bullying when I was a kid, that really made me feel good. And I feel like this attitude of his also wins him a very precious ally in how he kind of imposes himself and his will on Zoro. He says, this is what we're doing, whether you want it or not.
We're friends now, okay?
Right. Low-key, he would be annoying to be friends with, but also adorable. Also just how are Captain Morgan and Helmeppo related is another question I have. Like,
who's the mother? Like,
right?
what's the mother look like?
She must
Like
have been a hatchet.
they're both cruel in their own ways. Like Captain Morgan is cruel, scary, and a badass, and Helmeppo's a wimp that is also cruel and just nasty. So, but other than that singular thing that they seem to share, they're completely different.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I would be curious, like Michael said, to like who's the third person in this triad, you know? And then I gotta say, the way like my heart dropped when the statue broke, I was like, oh no, Luffy, you done fucked up now. You just messed up real bad. But yeah, chapter 4 was I feel like that really, along with chapter 3 and then on the other end chapter 5, are all very dynamic chapters that kind of bring the story forward in a really interesting way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I believe I kicked off chapter 4. So, Dylan, do you want to do chapter 5, open chapter 5 for us?
Yeah, chapter 5 was interesting. Like, chapter 5 is really where, like, the action of this little arc really starts to take off. Because it starts off with Luffy storming through the base. And, like, the Marines stop, we'll shoot. And he's like, I don't give a shit. And then he puts Hemplo in front of him, uses him as a shield, and rushes. Helmeppo, whatever. And then, like, he like holds him as a human shield in front of him and starts bum rushing him. And then he gets the sword. It's like, oh, you passed out. What a wimp. Another thing, the backstory for Zolo was really heartwarming. Besides the whole, like,
Stairs are 1-0.
damn, yeah, stairs, man, mortal enemy of mankind.
People do die falling down
Yeah, they
stairs,
do,
though.
but they're usually like 90, not like 12. 12-year-old usually bounces back from a tumble down the steps. But like the whole heart, like I really like the part when it's just like, she's like, oh well, I'm a girl, I can never be it, and he was like, no, fuck that. It's like, it's not about whether or not you're a boy or a girl. It's about how hard you work for it. I don't care if you're a boy or a girl. My goal was we're going to do this, and then we'll fight for that title at the end. I liked that message. That was a really good message, I thought.
I wrote that down, too.
And then she slipped.
She slipped.
Yeah. I was just like, really? It's like, man, that's... To me, that was kind of, like, really anticlimactic. It's like, man, I kind of wish, like... It makes sense why he's so determined to do it. I get that as a plot device, but it's like... I would like to see, it's like, oh, maybe, like, she'll be a character he bumps into, and they have a little clash, and they keep fighting, all that stuff. That would have been cool to see. But then... Hold on, look through real quick. But yeah, like, and then he comes in, saves him, because he can't be hit with bullets. And then, again, Luffy failing task successfully. He's like, so, man, I can't get your arm untied. And it's like, hurry up, they're about to shoot us. It's like, I got one arm. That's good, right? It's like, just give me my damn swords.
Yeah, that's good, right?
But yeah, like a great chapter. Like, this is where it's really starting to ramp up, and this is where I really started getting really interested in it. But that's pretty much all I got for that chapter. Oh, whoops, sorry. I think I jumped ahead a little bit. I jumped a little bit ahead to 7.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, no.
Maybe.
No,
Maybe you did.
Six ends with them being like, oh, here's your swords. And then 7 opens up. My bad. Well, anyways, that's all I got for that one.
I have a lot of thoughts on Quina. So I found her very relatable to me as a woman, and not to bring the whole, like, me being a chick thing into, like, that's not what this podcast is about, but I could relate to her on that basis because I've also felt like I don't have a place in the world. And to your point, I understand the message that Zoro was trying to convey to her and saying, like, it doesn't matter who you are so long as, like, you strive for your goals and you do everything you can to achieve them. Like, I get that, but at the same time, there are expectations of society for men and women that aren't necessarily conducive to that. Like, sometimes it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
And I felt for her a lot. And I thought that her demise felt so cheap. Because I feel like her only purpose is to serve Zoro's development. And I find that to be a shame because I feel like there was so much potential there for her 100%. If she were still alive. I think she herself could have grown into a really, really interesting character. I think that would have furthered Zoro's development because I think, like, obviously we learn through trauma, but we also learn through other things, and I would have been curious to see kind of how that relationship would have developed if that hadn't happened. And yeah, I guess I was a little disappointed. I was a little disappointed in that twist, especially falling down the stairs.
We all were.
I
bet if you polled.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, what the fuck? Like seriously?
That's ridiculous. And I was disappointed. And, you know, as much as Alvida, I was okay with her being a plot device. I wasn't okay with Quina being
there was just so much
a
potential
plot device.
left.
Exactly.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I think it would have been so interesting. Also, another thing that I got from chapter 5 is And it kind of ties back to what I said earlier. I felt bad for Zoro when he realizes that he was being lied to, because he was so assured that that was going to be the outcome of these events. And he was so determined to see it through and to stick to it and be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to prove them that I'm able to do it. I will survive a month and then I'll be free. And then, yeah, just the moment where he realizes that it's a lie was kind of heartbreaking to me. So, yeah. Chapter 5 was, I think, was very interesting in terms of character development, but it made me sad. It made me a bit sad.
Sad and then, or disappointed and then sad.
Yeah.
I will say, you do get more flashbacks that flesh these characters and other characters out. I personally believe they get better as the story goes on. The author maybe he kind of learned something from that. But that flashback, I think if you polled fans, most would agree that was weak.
It could have been something besides stairs. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, even if you
just
don't
that,
keep the
yeah.
character. But in this chapter, Zoro officially joins Luffy's crew and casts his lot against the world, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to add there, V?
That's it for chapter 5.
Yeah, y'all pretty much got everything, I have written down casting their lot against the world, going against the Navy, not all the other pirates are going to be as friendly as they are. But why don't we move on to chapter 6? And V, that's yours.
Yeah, so this chapter was very much, if we were playing D&D, this would be like the encounter. It would be the fight scene. Yeah. Basically.
Hey, guys, sorry I punched the guy I shouldn't have punched. They're all really mad about it.
But, so this one was very much like the climax in terms of action, I feel like, in this volume. Again, the one thing that always comes to mind is how on earth is Luffy so oblivious to the danger around him? Like, everyone else is panicking or in complete upheaval. Meanwhile, he's like clueless, or seemingly clueless anyway. And yeah, I guess that's just something that's going to keep happening. I feel like that's just becoming the nature of this character.
I feel like that's partly him leaning on the fact that he knows he has the power. Like, because when he got hit with Alvida's mace, it's like, that doesn't hurt me. I'm made of rubber.
He does have a certain degree of confidence, but there is not a lot.
Yeah, there's not much going on there. Yeah.
No.
Turning.
Right. And I also thought something that, and again, I feel like I don't have as much for this chapter just because it is so action-filled.
Yeah, it's just fight.
I felt like the dichotomy between Luffy and Zoro is kind of striking in that chapter. Like, the fact that they're so different from one another works really well and works to their advantage. And I felt like that really shines through at the end of the chapter during the standoff. I was like, they're so complementary to one another. And I feel like that relationship is going to be interesting to see develop, and how they kind of play off of each other and complement each other. That's what I had for chapter 6.
Okay. Yeah, I put here, Captain Morgan refers to it as the secret treasure of the sea, the devil fruit. You're going to meet plenty of people with devil fruit powers as we go on. I don't think that's a huge spoiler. You will meet one. You'll meet a couple, I think, in our next volume. It's not so secret. I would say it's rare compared to all the background characters, just townsman number 1, whatever. But, you get to see Zoro let loose a little bit. He gets free. You get to see your first real fight. And you get to see Helmeppo knocked cold again. And there's not much better than seeing that little...
Very satisfying.
That little punk, get knocked down a peg or two. Yeah. But yeah, that's really all I had. Dylan?
It's like again action packed, but there's a couple like tongue in cheek funny moments to me. Like the part where I roll my eyes is like, oh, I do the 3 sword style. It's like, all right, come on, dog. That's a little.
I like that.
Little.
Maybe you will grow to like it as well.
I do like. I'll be honest. I do like it, but it's again. I've read the Dritz Arden books, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, another one of these guys. Oh, he's a tough swordsman, but he's like, oh, he's sensitive and mysterious. It's kind of like the pigeonhole I'm putting him into, just because I have that background knowledge of that series, and I see how he's portrayed out so far. The tie I get, he's like, oh, not as much of like, oh, I'm so sensitive as Dritz Arden, but kind of similar. My favorite part is I'm looking at right now is he blocks all the swords, and like Luffy's like, wow, he's so cool. And it's just like, but like, yeah, it's great to see, and then. It's another thing, like, you actually really get to see, like, what they're capable of, where he's just like, hey, man, duck, and then just knocks out all the Marines. With his Gum Gum Whip. What's the name of that move?
Whip.
But yeah, Hemplo gets knocked out again. Great.
Oh, yeah, that Gum Gum Whip was a nice 2-page spread.
Yeah,
I
that
love
was
the
a good
2-page
one.
spreads.
Yeah.
I will probably always bring up the sweet ones.
It kind of makes me a little sad that I'm reading on a tablet. Because I imagine if you're like
Go
actually...
sideways. I just found out today that it works so nice sideways. I've always been just because it's more comfy to hold it with like one hand kind of deal.
Oh, okay. I'll start. All right.
Yeah.
Now that I see that, and every time I know I got a 2-page thing, I'll just.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at those 2 pages. I don't think you're missing a ton by reading everything else. You know, in the I guess we'll call it hamburger, horizontal, vertical. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Science. But like you also get like another cool thing is like when he takes the axe sweep at him and like he decimates like the whole gate and like Kobe's like, wow, that's right. It's like, oh, okay. He like this guy's not a chump. Alvida was a chump. This dude could probably kill him if he hits him, but he never gets a chance to. And then of course Zolo one-shots him. But yeah, it was a good chapter. This is like a lot of action. Great chapter for me. I really enjoyed this chapter.
So chapter 7, you know, that's GG. They finish them off.
Easy.
Yeah, I literally put that. I'm going to put my notes. Easy.
Easy.
Uninstall. Get good.
Yeah, I thought this one was pretty quick. They're headed for the Grand Line. You know, you get this real sweet moment where Luffy really shows that he taught Kobe kind of how to fight for himself a little bit. Luffy taunts Kobe into a fight to kind of, you know, cut that connection, let him have a clean slate when he joins up with the Navy. And then they get saluted by the Navy, which I thought was pretty cool, pretty powerful scene here. And then at the end, it's like they made a serious mistake. And then you don't get to know exactly what that mistake is right away, but you do soon. And then, Dylan?
Yeah, like, I know we touched on, like, the topic of friendship earlier. It's like, we don't really see it, but this one where it's like, when they're talking, like, we got to the Grand Line. It's like, what do you care? You're not coming with us. It's like, well, you're my friends. I'm allowed to care about you, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we are friends, right? And Luffy's like, yeah, dude, we're always going to be friends, bro. I love you, man.
Bro.
My brother.
But then, like,
freaking love you, man.
Like, and like you said, like, Zolo points out the fact, and like I know people are gonna hate, I'm gonna refer to him as Zolo the whole time. But Zolo points out the fact, it's like, hey man, you better watch out. You were a pirate's cabin boy for 2 years. The intelligence finds out about that, you'll never be in. And then Luffy takes that and is like goads him into a fight, and it's like, I don't like you, fuck you, I'm gonna beat you up. And they're like, there's no way they're friends. And at the end, when he salutes and the Navy captain's like, you've got good friends. And it's like, hi, sir. It was great. It's a good wrap up to this whole thing. My favorite still, though, is when Zolo looks at them after they defeated, like, oh my god, he defeated the captain. And Zolo's like, you want to try and capture us? And they're like, oh, hell yeah, we're fucking free.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, the
that
very beginning.
Yeah, that was a great scene. But yeah, it's a good wrap up chapter, I think, for this whole little arc. That's all I got on that chapter.
And V?
Yes, just like Dylan said, I think that was a really good way to tie up all of the not the loose ends, but tie up that first volume in a really nice way. I also really found it funny and heartwarming that like they're all super happy to be finally liberated and like his reign of terror is over. I thought that was good. Um, and yeah, Luffy's personality really shines through here again just by his, what you guys just explained about him kind of um, forcing the events to unfold the way that he thinks they should unfold in Kobe, enlisting, so to speak, and them leaving, but ensuring that this happens as seamlessly and as smoothly as possible for everyone's benefit. And for all the trouble I see or I foresee being caused by Luffy's recklessness, I think he also sacrifices himself for others because of it. And I'm honestly not sure if he's cognizant of all the good that he does. Again, it's that whole lack of self-awareness
There's
thing.
a little tism.
Yeah, there's a little bit of tism, just a sprinkle of tism, where it's like he does fantastic things, but I don't think he's fully aware of those things that he does for other people. And I also had in my note, what's the grave mistake? And then I speculated and I was like, is the mistake that they're going to the Grand Line at all, or is it something else? Like I was wondering what that meant. Yeah. But I think you guys touched on everything else with regards to Chapter 7 for me.
Did you catch what the great mistake was?
I don't think I did, no.
Okay. We'll see if Dylan...
Is it brought up in this chapter? Or is it like kind of touched on in the next chapter?
It's like the first thing they talk about. They talk about it rather than have like the narrator.
Okay, yeah, I know what the great mistake is. I'm pretty sure.
Well, V, did you have anything else?
No.
Well, Dylan, go ahead and start Chapter 8 off by telling us what was this great mistake that these knuckleheads
The great
made?
mistake is none of these guys know how to navigate. So they've literally the whole time just
They
been...
also didn't bring any food. They're like, wow,
Oh,
we should have brought food.
Okay,
Right.
That I would say is the bigger of the mistakes. But trying to navigate, like trying to just like, hey, let's just float. And I love the fact that Luffy's just like, well, floating around's worked for me. It's like, bro, your first day, you're like, well, shit, I was gonna drown anyways. Guess it's not that bad. It's like, come on, man.
That's
I know
true,
Garmin
right
hasn't
off the
been.
bat.
I know Garmin hasn't been invented yet, but damn. But no, like interesting because this is like kind of like giving you the tidbits, like trying to hook you in for the next volume. You get and I love it, and like they're like, yeah, now that you bring it up, they don't have food, and it's like, man, I'm so hungry, and like Luffy's just like, oh, there's a bird, let's eat that.
Yeah.
And Zolo's like, how? And it's like, check this out, and fails another task successfully.
Let me show you.
Gun rockets, the bird just grabs him, flies off.
I love that.
And Zolo's just like, oh, what the hell, dude? And starts rowing. And then you meet the three pirates unbeknownst to us yet that have been swindled by Nami. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, and they're like, oh, man. He's like, oh, great. Shipwreck survivors. He's like, I don't have time. Just grab on. Just keep running. They're like, we'll take this ship. And it cuts to the next frame. Like, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't realize you were Zolo. And then it's kind of like, what happened? You get to see. And they're like, oh, well, this lady. And it's funny because I didn't notice it until I was rereading it. They're like, oh, there's this lady. She took our ship. And then one of them's like, oh, she was kind of hot. And the next thing, the one guy starts going into like the flashback. And you see the other guy beating up the other dude for calling her hot. But then it's like you can kind of see, like, for me, knowing what little I know about sailing and stuff, the fact that she's calling out to sea, it's like, to me, like, in fact, she's like, oh, okay, you got a squall line coming in. It's coming out of the south, so it's going to be chances of capsizing are really high. To me, it's like that's probably going to be the navigator. If you can read the ocean, the storm conditions that well, you probably navigating by the stars probably ain't out of your wheelhouse. But also, like we mentioned earlier, when it's just like she's running, like she's like one of those like if it was D&D, she'd be a high charisma character, where she just like smooth talks her way out of everything. And it's like, oh, running away, and then he just falls out, and it's like, oh crap! It's like, oh, boss, you're finally here, and they're like, oh fuck that, don't chase her, we got the boss. And he's like, wait, what? And like the classic, the ending, it's like, oh, you want to team up? I rob pirates for a living. And he's like, wait, hold the phone, what? But no, I think this is like a perfect lead, and then you also kind of get a little tidbit. What's like I was saying earlier, I like the shots of the ship. You get a good shot of the next bad guys.
Yeah.
next bad guy ship, and so it's a really good hook to get you into the next one. Because like after rereading it 4 times, it's like, damn, let's get this episode out of the way so I can read the next volume. I just want to read the next volume. I think I already know where this is going because of that Shonen Jump I read, but I'm very interested to get into it. That's all I got for chapter 8.
All right, V.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan said it. I think this is the perfect way to kind of introduce us to what's coming next without giving too much away. I think it does great in leading us towards, wanting to find out more. I'm definitely similar to Dylan. I was like, okay, now we're going to get to read volume 2. Yay. And I got like excited for it.
Oh yeah.
I love the absurdity of two pirates unable to navigate.
It's like that's
So
kind of
it's
like pirating
really?
101.
Really,
Learn how
guys?
to sail a ship.
You would think. But again, I think their inability opens the door to a potentially what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's going to be a mutually beneficial relationship. I feel like Nami joining the crew is going to be mutually beneficial, and I'm excited to see in what ways. I was also very excited to kind of find out more about the upcoming quote-unquote villain or antagonist, Captain Buggy, I think, the clown, I think is
Buggy
how...
the Clown, you saw his ship, it had a little circus tent on it.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
And an
also
elephant,
the fact that
like, headpiece.
Yeah, and also the fact that we know that he also has eaten one of the devil fruit. I'm looking forward to finding out what
That's a good point.
that has done to him. And I think again that speaks to this chapter's ability to set it up for the future. It definitely hooks you in and drives you to want to read more and really get your teeth into the upcoming volume. And I have to say, kind of cheesy, but towards the very end, there was this like Indiana Jones-esque moment with the hat, with Luffy saying,
Oh, yeah.
how does he say, like, don't touch the hat?
I haven't.
Yeah, because he gets like punched and the
Yeah, he
hat
literally
flows
says,
off.
"Don't touch the hat." And he has
Yeah.
it, like, right
That
here.
was a great bit. I love that.
And I was
that
like,
panel.
I love that. I thought that was really, really good. And then right after that, we jumped to Nami being like, hey, do you want to team up with me? And I was like, yes.
Do you want to form an alliance with me? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier when we kind of dove deeper into the character analysis, I think she's going to make a fantastic addition to the team. And she's basically everything they need as a pirate. I think she's going to be just a fantastic ally. And I'm excited. I'm super excited to read volume 2 at this point.
Me too. As far as what I had for chapter... Oh, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
That's it.
So, yeah, I mean, I love Nami. You clearly have a bead on her kind of storyline that she's likely another member of the crew. She is my favorite Straw Hat that is not named Luffy. They even say in this chapter, she'd make a great navigator. Someone says that about her. Seeing Buggy ship, I did put that down. That was really cool. You know, you just had this one like big shot. They mentioned the Grand Line again. I've already mentioned multiple times how I love the way that she was like, "Oh, hey, boss." And just everything about her introduction, I felt like was just masterfully done. She's my favorite. She's the best girl, waifu, all that fun stuff that us nerds like to.
Hopefully, she
label.
doesn't come across any stairs.
Oh God, no,
forbid.
not the stairs.
Not the stairs.
Just take the ramp, please. We're not ready for another loss.
Stairs are a young
again.
man's game. But yeah, that's all I got for chapter 8, which brings us right up to the conclusion here. Did you guys have any last words you wanted to slip in here before we wrap things up?
I'm just very excited. Coming into this, I kind of told myself, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy it. Let's see how it goes. And then in reading volume 1, I was like, oh man, I feel like I'm gonna become one of those One Piece nerds.
Can't wait.
um, yeah, I feel like so far I'm surprised at how well balanced it is. Like for something that is shonen, I feel like it does a really good job at balancing action, comedy, heartfelt moments, and adventure and
Yeah.
whimsy. Also, a lot of whimsy, even though it's presented in a more, it's kind of in a subtle way. In a like, how can I put this? Like the whole fruit thing isn't super subtle, but it's also not like the fantasy and the whimsy doesn't permeate absolutely everything in the universe. It's still
Yeah.
relatable.
Grounded.
Right, exactly. And I think that that really works to its advantage. I think it makes it easier for me to relate to and dive into and see myself in that context.
Yeah, it's not quite Alice in Wonderland,
Right.
but it's not, NYPD Blue or CSI.
Right.
I guess would
right.
be better.
And and I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that persists throughout the story, the telling of the story. And I'm very, very excited for what's next.
Me too, V. Me too. Dylan, anything else you want to?
Based on where I came from, like I read the Shonen Jump. The first big manga I like really got into, like I said, was Attack on Titan, which is very very grimdark.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of gore, a lot of hard topics, stomach. So coming into this, like I've always looked at One Piece like, oh, it's just some goofy shit. Still gonna dump on that reindeer when I see him, but like after reading this volume, it's just kind of like, you know what, all right, I'm starting to the point. It's like I kind of put that to the side because it's kind of letting me know it's like it's coming off goofy, but we got some serious stuff to delve into here. So I am also super excited to get into the next volume. Very much looking forward to reading that.
All right. Well, I just want to thank both of you for joining me tonight to get this thing started. We're off the ground. We are in flight here. I want to thank everyone who's still listening. Thank you so much for sticking around, hearing us rant and rave about One Piece. We would love to hear from you. Again, my name's Michael. We have V and Dylan. You've heard their names multiple times here. Please drop us a line at podpodfruit@gmail.com. We're still getting some stuff off the ground. We may have some other social medias, but those will come in time. Be on the lookout for those in our description. And bon voyage.
Thank you so much, everyone.
I don't see. It's the wrong thing to say, but bye.